أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وخاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين، سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. السلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه، فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls, the enlightenment of the hearts, for the acceptance of the deeds, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, enlighten your souls, purify the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Respected elders, sisters and brothers, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This man was the first martyr on the 10th of Muharram, an individual who is a brilliant companion of the Holy Prophet, Amir al-Mu'mineen, as well as the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam, and beloved to them all, and a man who had exceptional qualities, bravery, chivalry, loyalty, and an individual whose life needs to be studied and lessons learnt from. Muslim ibn Awsaj al-Asadi was an outstanding companion of Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Husayn salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. During the Majalis of Muharram, the name of Muslim ibn Awsaja is not alien to the Mimbar, to the Majalis, and to the books and the narrations that we come across. For there is no doubt that he was considered to be a special companion of the Holy Third Imam. Many of us have come across his name in the recognition that we know that he was truly an individual who sacrificed his life, but he was also known as a person who was brave, a person who dedicated his life for the sake of the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we study Karbala and the historical narrative of the 10th of Muharram, there are a number of facets and dimensions often examined by researchers, by institutions and other organizations. One of them is what's known as Awa'il, the firsts. Meaning what? Meaning sometimes people look at Karbala and begin to list the first things that happened or the first individuals that did certain things. Example, today there are books written analyzing the first dua of Imam on the day of Ashura. Then there are those who examine the first sermon of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam on the 10th of Muharram. There are those who question who amongst the companions of the Imam alayhi salam was the first to give a sermon. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, he came out and spoke on the day of Ashura. There are those who wonder who was the first to attack the army of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Was whom? Umar ibn Sa'd, when he threw and struck an arrow and said, "Be witness that I am the one who is the commencing of the battle." There are those who question who is the first from Bani Hashim to attain Shahada, martyrdom on the day of Ashura. The answer is, of course, Ali al-Akbar. There is a book that I have that is published in Iraq, Karbala, that is about 200-300 pages. It details the first for many things to do with Ashura. One of the things that indeed today historians have come forward and said was that the first martyr from the companions of the Imam is Muslim ibn Awsaja, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. What an honor. What a tremendous accolade and a merit that a person would indeed be attaining Shahada as the first on this blessed day of sacrifice, fighting with Abu Abdullah. That's why it is indeed interesting when you come and examine this particular individual. You'll find that yes, his name is known, but there are many others who indeed gave their lives are not as well known. For example, Sa'id al-Hanafi, this individual deserves to be mentioned from the minbar, deserves to be known during these nights of remembrance. This Sa'id, on the day of Ashura, one of his main concerns, in addition to fighting, was what? Salah. When it came to the Salah time, he stood right in front of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Narration says that he was somebody who received the arrows in his body. There were arrows after the Imam finished his Salah on his legs, on his chest, and I saw narration saying there was an arrow in his face. He dropped as soon as Imam finished the Salah. He had not yet indeed attained Shahada. He looked at the Imam and says, "Awafayta ya ibn Rasulillah, have I been loyal? Have I indeed fulfilled my mission?" Imam says, "Bala wallah, by God you have. Anta amami fil Jannah. You are going to enter Jannah before me." Now, yes. Another individual who deserves to be remembered is whom? Burayr ibn Khudair or Khadir. Burayr, who is he? Is he mentioned? Sometimes not. Burayr was a brilliant companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He was a teacher of the Quran. He was an individual who recited the Quran in Kufa brilliantly. He, on the day of Ashura, stood out. Why? He was always smiling and joking. They came to him and said, "Burayr, it's not befitting on a day like this for you to smile and joke." He said, "Did you know me as a joker before today? Have you ever noticed that when I was young and before Ashura, me giving jokes and smiling?" They said, "No." He said, "Then why am I smiling today?" They said, "That's what we're asking you." He said, "I'm happy. It's only a few minutes and I am in Jannah." Such examples exist. We call them who? We call them Ashabul Hussein. Yet they have a higher title that we must understand. When we come to ziyarah that we often recite on Thursday nights, on the day of Ashura, on nights of Qadr and other nights when we perform ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, we refer to these great individuals who learnt from Sayyid al-Shuhada in such a brilliant manner as Ansarul Hussein, don't we? There is a difference between Ashabul Hussein and Ansarul Hussein. Please understand. A Sahabi is a companion, someone who associates with somebody, who accompanies somebody. A certain individual who is from the Ansar is someone who rises to support them. Someone who does whatever it takes to stand up for them, to sacrifice for them. Therefore, in the ziyarah, what do we recite? Assalamu alaykum ya ansara dinillah. Assalamu alaykum ya ansara rasulillah. Assalamu alaykum ya ansara Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alaykum ya ansara Fatima, Sayyidati Nisa al-Alameen. Assalamu alaykum ya ansara Abi Muhammad al-Hasan. Assalamu alaykum ya ansara Abi Abdullah. They were Ansar. Why? The Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kunu ansar Allah. O you who believe, label yourself, if you can, as the helpers of Allah. To be Ansarullah is a lofty position. That means I support the cause of Allah at all times. Whatever I see when it comes to the affairs of this world that impacts my religion, I stand up for it. Or I try to make an important declaration or a stance when it comes to the affairs relating to supporting the cause of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I and you want to be of Ansarullah, we need to learn from Ansarul Hussein. If I want to be of an individual who follows in the footsteps of Sayyid al-Shuhada, I need to understand the lives of Ansarul Hussein. And one of the greatest was Muslim ibn Awsaja. If today I was to ask you now, and of course you're not going to respond, but if I was to tell you, tell me 2 minutes from the life of Muslim ibn Awsaja. Alhamdulillah, we have attended majalis for so many years. How much are we able to relate from the life of this individual? Are we able to link his life to our life? Are we able to say, I am a proud follower of Muslim ibn Awsaja or Burayr or others who stood so bravely on the day of 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura. Therefore, the purpose is to examine the life of Muslim ibn Awsaja through a lens of what I call active historical analysis. You may have not come across this term before. Active historical analysis is different to a simple narration or looking at historical sources. Active means I look at it with the lens of contemporary challenges that I face. Meaning that when I analyze, for example, the life of these holy individuals, I have to cross-relate to my life. I ask important questions. I scrutinize my affairs so that I am close to these individuals. They gave their lives so that you and I are on Siratul Mustaqim. I would like to thoroughly in depth examine the life of Muslim ibn Awsaja, a man whom, for those who came late, was the first martyr on the 10th of Muharram in the campsite of Sayyid al-Shuhada, by examining the following questions. Number 1, what is the idea of the life of Muslim before Karbala? In the idea that do we know much about what he did and what he achieved, and especially when it comes to Bani Asad. Bani Asad is his tribe. Did they support Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and what were their achievements? Number 2, we are told Muslim ibn Awsaja took part in the futuhat, in the expeditions and battles during the time of the second Khalifa. Is that acceptable or not? Number 3, what happened in Kufa when it comes to Muslim ibn Awsaja? Was he responsible? And was he tricked by the spy of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, whereby he disclosed the location of Muslim ibn Aqil? Number 4, why was he not to be seen when Muslim ibn Aqil turned around in Masjid al-Kufa and saw no one to support him? Where was Muslim ibn Awsaja? Where was Habib ibn Mudahir? Where were the other people who supported Imam al-Hussein who were there in Kufa? Number 5, when he was in Karbala, what did he say on the eve of Ashura? How does this apply to our lives today? Number 6, when he had an opportunity to kill Shimr on the day of Ashura, why did Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam stop him? And what does this say about the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada? Number 7, what was his last statement before he left this world? What does it mean to our relationship with each other today in the footsteps of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi? Asad ibn Khuzama was the individual whom Bani Asad tribe get their name from. A man at the time of Jahiliyyah who was known to have battles with different tribes and denominations. Bani Asad, these tribes, they embraced the religion of Islam when? They embraced the religion of Islam according to narrations in the year 9 after Hijrah. 9 after Hijrah they came. They used to live in an area known as Najd, which is central Saudi today, Central Arabian Peninsula. Then they came to Medina and declared their allegiance to the Holy Prophet of Islam. Muslim ibn Awsaja, today historians don't talk about his age. Why? Because unfortunately we don't know his date of birth. But some have estimated that on the 10th of Muharram, he was between 70 to 90 years of age, amongst the elders of the Shuhada of Karbala on the day of Ashura. But he was likely to be amongst those who embraced the religion of Islam earlier on, from the year 9 after Hijrah. And therefore, he is known to be from the tribe of Bani Asad. Bani Asad, there are today people who criticize them. They say they did not support Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. They did not rise with him in Karbala. On the contrary, there are a lot of reports, historical records, that say Bani Asad actually had positive roles to play when it comes to the story of Ashura and the epic of Karbala. For example, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam purchased the land of Karbala from them, number one. Number two, the river of Alqami. You've seen this particular river of Alqami, yes? Today, if you go to Karbala for ziyarah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you all the tawfiq to perform ziyarah. There is something known as outside ziyarah, where people go and see these sites that till today remain, that gives them an idea of how the battle was. They're able to construct some kind of image. Often, we go to an area where people remember the heroics of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas salamullahi alayhi and the story where he came to take the river. Those of you who have been to Karbala know that particular area. There are many who say we're going to the river of Alqami. But the river of Alqami is dried up. There is no trace of the Nahr of Alqami in Karbala today. When we go to these sites, we must be able to give people the correct information. If I am taking a group and I'm saying to people, this is river of Alqami, I'm misleading them. And if I don't know that Nahr al-Alqami has dried up, I need to go and check my information. Because in every year when we go for ziyarah, people tell me the groups I went with all told me this is where Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas came and took his water from. Be careful not to misrepresent Karbala and information for the sake of tourism. These are important sites. This is symbolic. This area where people go and there is water, it's symbolic in remembrance of Abu al-Fadl. That's all. It's nothing related to the Nahr al-Alqami. Yet this particular offshoot of Furat, known as Nahr al-Alqami, yes, it was an area that was started off by an individual by the name of Alqam al-Asadi. He's from Bani Asad. Similarly, we are told what? We are told those who helped Imam al-Sajjad, Zayn al-Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Bury the Shuhada on the 13th of Karbala were from Bani Asad. Two of the important representatives of the Holy 12th Imam, Uthman ibn Sa'id and Muhammad ibn Uthman, of the four are from Bani Asad. How many Shuhada on the day of Ashura were from Bani Asad? We are told there were 8, including Habib ibn Mutahir and Muslim ibn Awsaja al-Asadi Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. When we come to analyze his early life, we recognize that history is silent regarding his involvement during the time of the Holy Prophet, as well as the first few years until year 22 after Hijrah. Please focus on this so that we can follow in his footsteps. Year 22 after Hijrah, there was the conquest of Azerbaijan. This conquest happened at the time of the second Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab, whereby the Muslims were attacking Persia, conquering land, and we are told in a narration by Shabath al-Rabi'i, he was an individual who on the day of Ashura, when Muslim was martyred, what happened? People celebrated from the army of Yazid. He said to them, you celebrate a man who killed 6 disbelievers in the battle of Azerbaijan? But Shabath al-Rabi'i was in the army of Yazid. But he knew the position of Muslim ibn Awsaja as one of the 5 companions of the Prophet who was martyred in Ashura. How many? 5. According to many historical records, they were 5 in number of the Sahaba of Rasulullah who gave their lives on the day of Ashura. This battle has indeed been explained in historical records. It was a very important battle, very fierce one. Many people were killed, but the bravery of Muslim ibn Awsaja was prevalent and was seen by people in this particular battle. And eventually it led to Azerbaijan as we know it today being taken over by Muslims, no doubt. Yet today there are people who ask the question, wait, what is the stance of the school of Ahl al-Bayt regarding these particular battles? Are we in support of them or against them? No doubt, if you analyze the position of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam, what do we find? We find that they have stood against these particular battles, many of them. Why? Let's examine after. We ask you to come forward as much as possible, inshallah, to make space. Please come forward in remembrance of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. Please come forward more. The second salawat in the love of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. The third, to demonstrate the love and loyalty to the master of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, with the loudest of your voices. Amir al-Mu'mineen would stand and many times say that I am not for these particular futuhat, so-called, at the time of the second Khalifa particularly. But there are instances where it is said that he either supported or sent certain individuals to take part. Why? There are a number of reasons given very briefly. Number one, it was for the benefit of the religion of Islam, and he knows the maslahah, the general well-being of the religion of Islam. He says, I will remain silent as long as it benefits the religion. Secondly, he needed people in those battles to tell him what's going on. There were some crimes committed in those battles. That's why we are told Salman al-Muhammadi, Ammar ibn Yasir, and Muslim ibn Awsaja took part on some of these. Similarly, Imam alayhi salam sent some of his companions. Why? So that they can spread Islam peacefully as well. Yes, take part when it's necessary and it's okay, whereby no crimes are being committed. They knew exactly what to do and not to do, but also involved in dissemination of knowledge and the teachings of the religion of Islam. That's why when you come to this, what do you find? We find Amir al-Mu'mineen has a beautiful narration regarding Muslim ibn Awsaja. He calls him Akhi, my brother. And at the same time, we are told he would ask him sometimes to recite Quran for him. Muslim was somebody who would recite the Quran for the commander of the faithful. When it comes to Kufa, Muslim would live in this particular city and was amongst those who sent a letter to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam inviting him towards this particular area. Now, how many people signed these letters we have heard from Mimbar? 18,000. You agree? We've heard figures in the thousands that people invited Imam to come and to rise against the tyranny of Bani Umayyah. Yet don't fall into the mistake of thinking that all these people who invited Imam are under the same camp. They were largely under three camps. Please understand. The first group of people, Amr ibn al-Hajjaj, Shabath al-Raba'i and others, were hypocrites and looking for dunya. They were only interested in wealth. They were only interested in power. That's why they asked Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to come to Kufa and to rise against Bani Umayyah. They may have had something against Bani Umayyah, or disliked the governor of Kufa, or disliked, for example, Yazid, but they did not have any allegiances to Sayyid al-Shuhada or principles. That's the first group who signed letters. The second group from Kufa are whom? People who would go with the flow, who were lost, who had no idea what's going on. When they saw many signing, they said, we'll sign as well. They weren't necessarily individuals who were driven by justice. They weren't looking for the Khalifa of Allah to lead in the right manner. They were just individuals who sought some kind of general allegiance just because everybody was seeking it. The third group of people, though, were the true Shia. They were individuals who recognized the Khalifa of Allah, willing to sacrifice their lives, and at the same time wanted adala and righteousness. They indeed are the ones that Muslim ibn Awsaja was amongst those who signed the letter. When Muslim ibn Aqil Radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi arrived in Kufa, which house did he stay in first? Muslim ibn Awsaja. Riwayat say, historians say, the first house that Muslim ibn Aqil stayed in was his namesake, Muslim ibn Awsaja al-Asadi, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. This shows that, of course, Muslim ibn Aqil trusted him. He was a confidant. He was somebody whom indeed had the necessary knowledge and can protect Muslim ibn Aqil. When Muslim ibn Aqil was in the house of Muslim ibn Awsaja, he was given the task, Muslim ibn Awsaja and Habib ibn Mudahir, to go and take the bay'ah from the people of Kufa. So Habib ibn Mudahir and Muslim ibn Awsaja went out with a number of people, took allegiances from the people of Kufa. We all know what happened eventually. When Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad came, there were a lot of tricks, there were a lot of bribery, people became afraid, people began to slowly withdraw their support to Muslim ibn Aqil Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh due to threats, etc., etc. There is an important story that I'd like your attention, because the analysis is key. Why? Because history is full of venom against Ahl al-Bayt and those who were with Ahl al-Bayt. And it's reached some of the mimbar, sadly. Some of the time, from the mimbar, we hear stories innocently, but without careful examination, if we don't go to the roots of these stories, we begin to attack certain holy individuals without knowing it. And this is one of the stories. What's the story? Like, for example, Baladhari. Even Shaykh al-Tusi, one of our ulama, narrates it. At-Tabari and others, they narrate the following story. Please understand it so that it clarifies. You might have heard it from the mimbar before. What's the story? There was a man by the name of Ma'qal, and he was a slave of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Ubaydullah says to him, I want to know where this Muslim ibn Aqil is. So I'm going to give you 3,000 dirhams. I want you to go and infiltrate them. Give me some information as to where Muslim ibn Aqil is. So Ma'qal comes to Masjid al-Kufa. He looks around and he finds somebody performing salah. Then he says, هؤلاء الشيعة يعرفون بكثرة صلاتهم. These Shia, they're known by the amount of prayers that they perform. Subhanallah. I don't know if it can be said today. Yes. In the recognition that he came forward to this individual, when he finished, he says to him, أصلحك الله. May Allah guide you. I am one of the lovers of Ahl al-Bayt. Who is saying this? Ma'qal. And I have come with 3,000 dirhams from Sham, and I have to give it to the ambassador of Hussein. Can you lead me to him? So the man looks at him and says, how do you know I know where he is? He said, I looked at your face and it has lots of khair in it. You look from the righteous people. At that moment, according to this narration, the man looks at him and says, yes, I am Muslim ibn Awsaja, and I can take you to Muslim ibn Aqil. So he takes him to Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim ibn Aqil apparently welcomes him. When he welcomes him, he becomes somebody who constantly comes and sees Muslim ibn Aqil, gives him the money, and eventually tells Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad that Muslim ibn Aqil is in the house of Hani ibn Urwa. And of course, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad then wants to capture Muslim, and we know the rest of the story. Here, historians say Muslim ibn Awsaja and Muslim ibn Aqil both were tricked by this spy. Yes, and therefore fell into error. How do we respond to this? Number one, these are not normal individuals. Sisters and brothers, let's look at history objectively, not from the lens of Bani Umayyah, but from the lens of Ahl al-Bayt. No narration from the Ahl al-Bayt actually mentions this, actually refers to this particular story, because there is a similar story attacking Hani. And wallah, I have heard it all my childhood from the mimbar. So many times I hear it from khutaba. Yes, those who are careless when they come to these stories, they don't bother to investigate the story. What's the story? Hani was sick. Ubaydullah came. Hani said to who? Said to Muslim, when I give you a sign, kill him. Have you heard the story? Yes? If you haven't, where have you been all these years? In the recognition that, of course, their story is that when Ubaydullah came to visit Hani, and Hani kept putting a sign, and Muslim ibn Aqil was behind him in a curtain, and he never came out. And then later he said to him, why didn't you kill him? He said, well, you know what, because we don't like to assassinate. The Prophet of Islam said, don't assassinate people. These were stories planted by the Bani Umayyah themselves to justify killing these holy individuals. To say, look, they wanted to kill us, so we'll kill them. When you look at the roots of these stories, it's only one historian who narrates it, and everyone takes it from him. For example, this Hani ibn Urwa story is by Tabari. When it comes to this story of Muslim ibn Aqil, there are many problems with it. What are the problems? How can we expect Muslim ibn Aqil, Muslim ibn Awsaja, these great companions of the Ahl al-Bayt, not to have the intelligence to examine this individual who's random, just to come and expect him and somehow welcome him? Secondly, this Ma'qal was known in history as a Nasibi, someone who hates Ahl al-Bayt. People knew him. He wasn't hidden. Thirdly, it was not a secret. Please understand this. It was not a secret that Hani ibn Urwa was housing Muslim ibn Aqil. They knew it. People of Kufa all knew it. There was no need for Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad to have a spy to discover where Muslim ibn Aqil was. Yes? This whole story was constructed to try and place the position of Muslim ibn Awsaja and Muslim ibn Aqil lower in the eyes of people. Look at the attempts of Bani Umayyah, that they have reached even our manabir. Yes, that this soft power they used back in the time in the fabrication of hadiths, unfortunately, has led to people without knowingly coming and putting these particular individuals in such a disreputable manner. That's why we reject this particular story. And we believe what Shaykh, for example, Sayyid ibn Tawus, Radwanullahi ta'ala, one of our ulama, he deals with it. He says, you know what happened? None of this business of spy that came to Muslim ibn Awsaja. No. What happened? All that happened was that this individual Ma'qal used to go to the house of Hani because everybody knew. He saw who Hani and he saw Muslim ibn Aqil. Later when Muslim ibn Aqil and Hani were captured, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad said, Ma'qal, come out. Ma'qal came and said, look, Hani, you were housing Muslim. I saw you. I was in the house. Khalas. That's all it is. Nobody was tricked. Nobody was placed in such a particular position. Question. However, people ask, where were the supporters of Muslim ibn Aqil, like Muslim ibn Awsaja, when he needed their help? How many times we have recalled the story of Muslim ibn Aqil being alone in Kufa, not having any support, yes, walking to the house of Taw'a, not having anyone in that city that welcomed him, that city that invited him. Where were these holy, great individuals? Have you ever asked this question yourself? It's important to ask this question, no doubt. The answer lies in a number of possible suggestions. The first is what? Is that Habib ibn Mudahir and Muslim ibn Awsaja from Bani Asad were given tasks that included being outside Kufa. Meaning what? They had to wait for the commands of Muslim ibn Aqil to launch whenever it was time. So they were positioned outside Kufa in strategic places, history tells us. So they waited and waited. And when Muslim ibn Aqil unfortunately was captured and then martyred, they saw no other alternative but to go to Karbala. That's one possible reason. Second is what? Muslim realized that the people of Kufa, unfortunately, those who were supposed to support him, have betrayed him. Therefore, he told Muslim ibn Awsaja and Habib ibn Mudahir and others, go. Burayr and others, go to Karbala. There is no point you being arrested, placed in prison, and what? And executed like Hani ibn Urwa was. Therefore he gave them permission. Why? Because we have an important area known as Qudsiyatul Sahaba, the sacredness of the Sahaba of the Ahl al-Bayt. Meaning what? That when we come to a historical narration, we have to have that in our minds. These were close to Ahl al-Bayt. The Ahl al-Bayt, if they did something wrong, they would say that was wrong. No doubt. Yes. Kumayl ibn Ziyad al-Nakha'i radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi was criticized by Amir al-Mu'mineen. In one instance, in one particular battle, Kumayl ibn Ziyad did something that Imam didn't tell him to. Imam was not silent just because it's Kumayl. Kumayl is a great Sahabi of the Ahl al-Bayt, yes? But Imam did not hold back from the criticism. If the Ahl al-Bayt's companions do something, the Imams would say something about them. But Muslim ibn Awsaja, Muslim ibn Aqil were confidants of the Ahl al-Bayt. They were great individuals. Therefore, we indeed will protect their reputation. Now, what happened to Muslim ibn Awsaja? He decided to go to Karbala. Whom did he take? He took with him his wife, he took with him his son, and he took with him his slave girl. Now, very interesting this, because when we think about it, why would someone like Muslim ibn Awsaja take his family to Karbala? Think about it. Why would somebody who's about to go and give his life decide to take his family? Yes, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam had a particular mission. From Medina to Mecca, from Mecca to Karbala, his family needed to be with him. But why did Muslim ibn Awsaja take his family? When you study history, many historians say that he had his family with him on the day of Ashura. This begs the question why. Perhaps one of the reasons is these Sahaba of the Ahl al-Bayt wanted to say that if I am going to do something righteous, if I'm going to stand up for the truth, I need my family with me. that they would do whatever it takes to be exemplars to their family, number one. Number two, to ensure that their family are part of their struggle. Yes. Today, I ask you, there is this fragmentation of family structure. There is a fragmentation of family cohesive relationships. Today, we live in a time where people are more isolated than ever. The Time magazine published an article a few years ago. I remember reading it, and it says 6 things to do before you die. One of them, live alone. Don't bother with the family. Today, the divorce rates are the highest when it comes to, yes, in this country and others. I saw statistics published by the Office of National Statistics in this country. The highest rates of divorce are in these years. And the lowest years of rates of marriage was in 2021 in history. In the records, 2021 was the lowest ever of people getting married. The whole family structure now is what? Is totally being threatened because the very definition of a family is now not necessarily agreed upon. Yes? Is the family a father and a mother and children, or 2 mothers and a children, or 2 fathers and a children? And the recognition therefore that exists is, more than ever, we should be defenders of this sacred institution that the religion of Islam says, which means what? At home, I invest. Fathers, invest in your family relationships. Meaning what? Don't be like a wall in the house. You know, a wall is there because otherwise the house collapses. But that's all it is. It's just a wall. Some of the fathers, they work. Maulana, I work. When I come back, I want to relax. I want to eat. I want to catch up with the news and everything, So I don't have time to spend with my family. I don't have time to speak to my children and understand their affairs and so on and so forth. Weekends are busy and so on and so forth. Don't expect this important sacred institution to grow if we do not invest in it. Yes. And today, unfortunately, we have so many breakdowns due to the lack of investment. I don't mean only money. Yes. I mean time. I mean effort. I mean understanding the very fabric of society, which is this family. Therefore, for example, pray together. Salatul Jama'ah at home. Why don't we do that? Yes, make this habit from a young age for children, babies, to see you, husband and wife, praying together, children then joining, yes, having discussions once a week, for example, where you sit down, no phones, no other distractions. Let's talk about a subject that you may come across, and indeed investigate answers. What happened to the very essence of this family relationship? That today when people sit to eat, many are on their phones. Why? What happened to the idea of simple communication? I've been to people's houses where the brother picks up, please come down on the WhatsApp. Everyone's communicating with each other with WhatsApp and Instagram. And yes, someone told me my son doesn't check his WhatsApp. He's too busy. I have to send him a message on Telegram. The idea that emerges is we have to invest, otherwise what? These are examples, yes? Muslim ibn Awsaj just said, no, I'll take my family. I want them to witness Karbala. I want them, like today, we must make that commitment. Yes, I will take my family for ziyarah. I will take my family for umrah. I will invest. Yes, it's difficult, cost of living crisis, no problem. But I will have the intention. I will try to create that environment for my children so that they're nourished. The hearts are indeed inspired. When it comes to Karbala, this great individual sets a beautiful example. Yes, example of bravery, of chivalry. What happened on the eve of Ashura? Please understand. سيد الشهداء أبا عبد الله الحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. He comes forward on that monumental night. I ask you, did he praise his Sahaba first or did they speak first? Please understand this. Often we are told that he said the following: فإني لا أعلم أصحابا أوفى ولا خيرا من أصحابي. I do not know of companions more loyal and what? More greater than my companions. Did he say this before they spoke or after they spoke? According to many historians, he said it before they spoke. Before they uttered these words. You might say, oh, well, anybody who hears this will then be obliged to say no. Maybe this was Imam alayhi salam's way to establish their positive, traits. Imam knew their hearts. Imam would not say something like this and know that they will all then turn their backs and run away when he said to them, go, you are free from the allegiance. No, 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 no. Imam recognized, because this is Imam, an Imam who's given this knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognizes also the intentions of human beings. He knew the strengths and the weakness of the Sahaba, but also knew of their loyalty. Therefore, when he said this, the individuals that stood up, who is the first to speak? The first to speak, according to riwayat, was Muslim ibn Awsaja. This man, how many fada'il he has. Yet, when I investigate and try and find a single majlis about Muslim ibn Awsaja in the history of English majalis, I'm not finding one. Why are we not analyzing the lives of these great individuals? Yes? Why are we not shedding light into who they were? So that we can learn. Muslim ibn Awsaja stood up. What did he say? Please understand. Because can I tonight, say the same to the Imam of my time? Please. Reflect on his words. He says, after Imam said to them, هَذَا اللَّيْلَ قَدْ غَشِيَكُمْ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ جَمَلًا. This is the night. It's there. No one can see. Please take one person from my family and go. Muslim ibn Awsaja says, أَنُخَلِّي عَنْكَ. Should we abandon you? وَلِمَا نَعْذَرْ إِلَى اللَّهِ فِي أَدَاءِ حَقِّكَ. What excuse will I have in front of Allah in fulfilling your right? The first thing he recognizes is Allah has placed an obligation for you and I. And that is to be obedient to Ali Muhammad. To be submissive to the commands of Allah given to us through Ali Muhammad. What excuse? Muslim ibn Awsaja starts with this. He says, I can't find an excuse. I'm struggling to find an excuse. Then he goes on to say, as a result of not being able to find an excuse, this is what's going to happen. Ama wallah, by God, hatta at'anu fi sudurihim. Tomorrow, I'm going to plunge my spear into their chests. برمحي وأضربهم بسيفي. And I will strike them with thy sword. ما ثبت قائم في يدي. As long as it's there in my hands. That's great. We've heard this. That it shows his unwavering loyalty and his brilliant courage. Then he says something interesting. وَلَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعِي سِلَاحٌ. And if I didn't have any weapons, أُقَاتِلُهُمْ بِهِ, that I used to fight, I will look for stones. To me, when I analyze the words of Muslim, it's sending a clear message for us today. Do you know what it's sending? Don't use excuse. Because somebody might say in a battlefield, if I don't have my weapon, how am I supposed to fight? I don't have a weapon. How am I supposed to survive? Therefore, I have an excuse that, you know what? I can't fight. Muslim ibn Awsaja was the defender of the truth despite any excuses. Yes, he says don't have excuses when it comes to standing the truth. When it comes to building upon your life on the principles, he says I will use stones, whatever, until what happens? Then he says wallah, by God, لا نخليك حتى يعلم الله أن قد حفظنا غيبة رسول الله. He says, I will never abandon you until I know that the Holy Prophet of Islam, his honor has been defended. Notice, it always goes back to Rasulullah. Karbala was about Rasulullah. The Sahaba, this is the Sahabi of Rasulullah. He says, I will defend the honor and integrity of Rasulullah. What happened? Now, this is a great speech by this great individual. But what he says now highlights another dimension of his soul, another dimension of his heart. And that's Ishqul Husayni, the deep love for Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. You search the hearts of these individuals and you'll find this incredible connection and unwavering loyalty that's very hard to find. He goes on to say, Wallah, if I am killed, then I am brought back alive. Then I am burnt. Then I am brought back alive. Then I am killed and my body is disintegrated into bits. And this happens 70 times. I will still fight for you, Ya Hussein. I will still fight for you, Ya Abu Abdullah. This was Muslim ibn Awsaja. And wallah, they were not saying it as a speech, or just because they felt like saying it. Each and every word was meant by this individual. Yes. Can I say this to Imam of our time today? Can I say to him, Yabna Rasulillah, I don't have any excuses when it comes to supporting your cause. I don't have any excuses about my family and the adherence to the principles of the religion of Islam. I don't have any excuses when it comes to not attending majalis or not learning about the religion. Do I have any excuses when it comes to the disobedience and doing things that upset you? Can I say that to the Imam of the time? Yes. I ask you sometimes, some of the mu'mineen, I know they send questions and so on. Maulana, I want to go on holiday and there are these resorts in different places around the world. Yes, am I allowed to go there? And trust me, Maulana, I will not look. I will have my head down. I ask them this question. You go to these beach resorts in Dubai and Turkey and this that are not halal. If someone tells you the 12th Imam will see you at the entrance of the resort, would you go? No. Forget the 12th Imam. If I see Ayatollah Sistani, I will not there go. Because I'll be embarrassed. I ask you, not embarrassed before Allah? Not embarrassed before your Creator? When you take your children to these kind of environments whereby people are barely dressed, yes, and there's all these kinds of music and dancing and alcohol. Maulana, I need to chill. There's too much stress. Who told you to chill in this way? That's it? That's the only way to chill? Wallah, come to Anfield, you'll chill there. Yes. In the recognition that what? That people today unfortunately have misplaced their priorities. Their priorities are no longer Allah, His Messenger, His Ahl al-Bayt. My priorities is my relaxation. Don't talk to me about my relaxation. I will come to the majlis, I will pay, I will do whatever it takes, but that realm is a different realm in my life. I need to enjoy myself. Habib, enjoy yourself, but in the halal way, yes. Place Allah before your decision. Don't make these decisions that you will regret on the day of Qiyamah. That's why Muslim ibn Awsaja did a brilliant thing on the day of Ashura. On the day of Ashura, narrations tell us that the La'in Shimr ibn al-Jawshan came towards the army of Imam alayhi salam before the battle began. He looked and Imam alayhi salam had dug a what? He had dug a trench and he had placed fire from behind. So there were flames. So he looked and he said, Ya Hussein, oh Hussein, you are now proceeding to hell in dunya before akhirah. That's what his words were. Imam alayhi salam says, who is this man? Is it Shimr ibn al-Jawshan? They said yes. Imam alayhi salam immediately says something about him which is interesting. He says, Yabna ra'iyat al-maghza. What does this mean? Oh, the son of the one who looked after sheep. Some people said this is not appropriate for the Imam to call Shimr by his mother. His mother was known to be somebody who looks after goats and sheep. So why is the Imam saying, oh, the son of the lady who looks after sheep? It's because of what? Of the fact that Imam is saying your birth is illegitimate. Because the riwayat say in Mustadrak al-Bihar and others that this particular lady came out one day from her tribe. She got lost. She wanted water. She found an individual who was a farmer. She said, can I have water? He said, the only way I can give you water is if there is what? The haram process. She said, no mind, no problem. She did it. Shimr was therefore conceived as a result of this. Shimr, yes, Imam alayhi salam saying is not a legitimate child. So when he said this to him, he said, you are this particular individual. He then says to him, Anta awla biha saliyya. You are worthy to go to hell. Yes. Then Muslim ibn Awsaja looks at Imam and says, he is very close. Perhaps not looking at me, I can finish him. Just let me finish him. Yes. And he could have. Muslim ibn Awsaja was able to kill this particular man. Imam alayhi salam said, don't, because I will not commence this battle. Inni akrahu an abda'ahum bil qital. I will not commence this fight. What does this say? When we study the 10th of Muharram and Ashura, we recognize that this particular event highlights the peaceful nature of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Please understand this. There are people today who say he was going for fighting. He was going for violence. He was seeking war and battle. No. evidence after evidence points to the peaceful intentions of the grandson of the Holy Prophet. You say to me, give me evidence. Number one, he left Mecca and Medina in order to avoid shedding blood in these holy cities. Number two, he would give sermons and advice and ask people and would say to Hur, let me go back. On the day of Ashura, he would say to them, why are you shedding my blood? Let me return. How many times would he invite them? He would speak to Umar ibn Sa'ad and say, why are you committing and perpetrating this particular crime? He said to his companions, go, I relieve you of your allegiance. How many instances Imam alayhi salam highlighted that he wasn't looking for bloodshed. He wasn't looking for people to lose their lives. His mission was a peaceful mission. But if he is attacked, he has to defend himself and has to defend his family. And this is one of the evidence that he would not allow Muslim ibn Awsaja to indeed to go and fight and to kill Shimr ibn al-Jawshan. And that's why on the 10th of Muharram, we are told in historical records there are differences of opinion amongst some when it comes to who was the first Shaheed. Some say it was Al-Hur. Why? Because when he came, Al-Hur ibn Yazid, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, he said to the Imam, allow me to be the first to be killed in your hands. But the Imam did not give him permission for that. He asked, but he didn't necessarily get permission. Yes. We have the oldest maqtal today, Abi Mikhnaf. He comes forward and says the first person from the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to be martyred was whom? Muslim ibn Awsaja. Who else and which ziyarah confirms this? Ziyaratul Nahiya al-Muqaddasa, which is narrated from the holy 12th Imam, Al-Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. This ziyarah is made up of two different ziyarahs. One is popular and one less popular. The popular one is a detailed maqtal of what happened on the day of Ashura to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. The less popular, less well known, lists the names of the shuhada of Karbala and some of what happened to them. How many are mentioned? 82. In this ziyarah, 82 names are mentioned. Just remember that the next time you think there were 72 who were killed in Karbala. Yes? At least 115, and their names are found on their tombs in Karbala today. At least 115. In the ziyarah, there's 82 that are mentioned. The longest passage in Ziyaratul Nahiya in honor of Shuhada of Karbala outside the Ahl al-Bayt was Muslim ibn Awsaja. Imam alayhi salam sends salams to him. He says to him, وَكُنْتَ أَوَّلَ مَنْ شَرَى نَفْسَهُ. You, O Muslim ibn Awsaja, were the first to give and sell your life. وَأَوَّلُ شَهِيدٍ مِّن شُهَدَاءِ اللَّهِ. And the first of the martyrs. قَضَى نَحْبَهُ فَفُزْتَ وَرَبِّ الْكَعْبَةِ. You were successful by the Lord of the Kaaba. شَكَرَ اللَّهُ مَوَاسَاتَكَ لِإِمَامِكَ. Allah is grateful for your bravery, for your Imam, for your loyalty for the Imam. Yes. That's why on the day of Ashura, Muslim was edging, very keen to fight. And we are told when he was finally given permission, after Umar ibn Sa'ad shot an arrow and said, now we are attacking, him and Nafi' ibn Hilal, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, both went together as a duel to the battlefield. At the first instance, when they were leaving, there was a man by the name of Ibn Hawza. He came towards them. When he came towards them, he cried out, "Oh Hussein, you are going to hell." Imam lifted his hands and says, "Ya Allah, take him to hell now." So the moment Imam prayed against him, the horse started to move and this man fell from the horse and his feet was what? Clinged on to the part you used to get onto the horse, and he was dragged on the floor. Muslim ibn Awsaja came and struck him. Yes. And killed him, and he was then dragged by the horse towards where the fire was and was thrown in there. Nafi' ibn Hilal and Muslim ibn Awsaja now go towards the battlefield. The moment they enter the battlefield, they fight courageously. They start what? With such passion, commitment. But what happened was that, for example, there are individuals who looked and said to them, don't allow them to fight by themselves, because these are the warriors of the Arabs. Go and throw stones at them. Surround them by a number of people. Yes. When they were surrounded, we are told no one can see what happens. Amr ibn al-Hajjaj, this La'in and others, took a group of fighters towards where Muslim ibn Awsaja was. And eventually when the dust settled, we are told that he was breathing his last. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam walked to 7 people. Please understand this. 7 people he walked towards. Yes. One of them was whom? Al-Hurr. Another was Muslim ibn Awsaja. Another was an individual who is a Turkish slave. Another was John, the servant of Abu Dhar. Another was Ali al-Akbar, Al-Qasim and Al-Abbas. These are the 7 whom Imam actually walked towards where they were. Muslim ibn Awsaja was one of them. What an honor that you receive the Imam of the time. But I ask you, when you're breathing your last and you see Aba Abdullah, Imam alayhi salam comes to him and says, Rahimakallahu ya Muslim, and then recites the famous line, فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. This is in ayah in Surah Al-Ahzab, where Imam would recite it for his Sahaba. Yes, that Quran says, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ. Amongst the believers there are people who indeed were honored when it comes to giving their life. صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. They gave this covenant to Allah. Some of them gave their lives, some are waiting, and they will never give this up. Yes. At that moment, Habib ibn Mudahir, who was very close to Muslim, comes to him and says to him, أُبَشِّرُكَ بِالْجَنَّةِ. I give you glad tidings of paradise. Habib, this moment was a great moment because Muslim ibn Awsaja now is hearing the news of paradise. So he says to him, بَشَّرَكَ اللَّهُ بِالْخَيْرِ. May Allah give you glad tidings. Then Habib said to him, if I knew that I will live much longer than you, then I would ask you to leave a will that I will execute. So Habib is not expecting Muslim to say anything because he knows soon he will also be martyred. But Muslim is not having any of it. Muslim is giving him a will. But there is one thing in his will only. He says, Bala, there is a will. There is. Habib says, what is it? What a moment that is in Karbala. Moment of brotherhood and loyalty. Muslim, the final thing he said in this world, he lifted his hands weak, pointed to Hussein and says, Alayka bihada. Make sure that you defend this man. Yes. Allahu Akbar. Even you're leaving this world and you're thinking Hussein. All your life Hussein. Your death Hussein. Your akhirah Hussein. Yes. This is Muslim ibn Awsaja. These are the Sahaba of Imam alayhi salam. This was their beauty. Yes. And I tell you, you look around and he wasn't the only one who would be indeed in this courageous stance on the 10th of Muharram. You've all heard of this individual, Wahab al-Kalbi, who of course when it came to the day of Ashura had just got married. Some narration says that he was a Christian. He embraced the religion of Islam due to the dua of the Imam. When he came on the day of Ashura, his wife was hesitant. He's just married. His wife didn't want to lose him. So he was trying to convince her that it's okay. I'm going to go and fight, defend Rasulullah, defend the Ahl al-Bayt. But the biggest surprise perhaps for him was when his wife came and said to him, I beg you, go and fight. Why? What happened? What is the change? She said to him, I heard Aba Abdullah say, Ala hal min nasirin yansuruna. Is there anyone to help us? Yes. Is there anyone to defend the family of Rasulullah? This was whom? This was this man, Wahab al-Kalbi, who goes and fights. Imagine the cry of Hussein changed the hearts of people. One young child who heard the cry of Aba Abdullah, I saw the narrations myself, was the son of whom? The son of Muslim ibn Awsaja. You look at this sign here, yes, where it says Amiri Husaynun wa ni'mal Amir. It says it here, yes. Who said this? The riwayat say this was the son of Muslim ibn Awsaja. He was quite young. He came out. He came to Imam al-Hussein. He said to him, Yabna Rasulillah, please let me fight. Imam said, no. Your father has already been martyred. Go back. Then he went back. He was crying. His mother said, what's going on? He said, oh mother, my indeed Imam has turned me back. She held his hands, walked towards Aba Abdullah and said, Sayyidi ya Hussein, I gave my husband, but please accept my son. I want to be proud on the day of Qiyamah with Fatima. Labbaik ya Zahra. Wallah, Fatima to Zahra is remembered in the hearts of the Shia, in the heart of the lovers of Ahl al-Bayt. Imam says, very well, go. He stands there and he recites, Amiri Husaynun wa ni'mal amir, surur fuadi, al-wali al-nasir. He says, this Imam is my Imam. Yes, I will defend him whatever it takes. And then after a few minutes, they throw his head towards his mother, and she embraces the hair. She starts to wipe the tears and the dust from his face. These are the shuhada. I ask you, each and every one of them. And that's why if you go to Medina, you'll find this lady who recognized that these shuhada were brilliant, but she, like others, also called Hussein who? al-Baneen, isn't it? al-Baneen gave her children for the sake of Islam, in defense of the Holy Prophet, in defense of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. But look at her bravery, look at her loyalty, because when she was standing there hearing the announcement of what happened in Karbala, she wasn't bothered about her children. She kept asking, tell me of Aba Abdullah, is he safe? Hussein, that's all I care about. Hussein, I want Hussein's news. Tell me. Yes. The only moment that al-Baneen was shaken was when she was carrying the son of Abu al-Fadl, and this man said to her, Azam Allahu ujuriki bimasabiki bi Abu al-Fadl. When she heard the cry of Abu al-Fadl, the name of Abu al-Fadl, he's gone, she dropped the son of Abu al-Fadl, yet she still had the courage and the strength, and she said, tell me of Hussein, I beg you. Did my Hussein survive? Allahu Akbar. That's why indeed it is portrayed in the books of history that when Sayyidah Zainab returned to Medina, she went to her house. When she went to her house, she said to Fidda, please, I don't want anyone to disturb me. This is the time for Azaa. This is the time for mourning. She sits in a room of Awn and Muhammad and cries. All of a sudden, who enters the house? al-Baneen. Yes, al-Baneen enters the house. Wallah, I've seen narrations that the brother of Zainab, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, says, Wallah, I never recognized her when she came to Medina. They said, why? He said, because the sun had burnt her face so much. When al-Baneen looked at Zainab, there were a few seconds where al-Baneen's eyes are on the eyes of Zainab. Zainab is looking at al-Baneen. I can imagine one crying out, who? Zainab crying out, Wa Abbas. al-Baneen saying, Wa Hussein. Allahu Akbar. Yes. Imagine al-Baneen saying to Zainab, please tell me what happened. Tell me what happened on the day of Ashura. Tell me about Karbala. Tell me Musiba. Did they feed Hussein water? Yes. Did they look after them? But afterwards she says, tell me about my Abbas. The poet says beautifully, he says, Zainab would say, al-Baneen, I beg you, don't think and don't remember the face of Abbas, because the eyes are penetrated with an arrow. And if you want to remember the hugs of Abbas, because Abbas gave his arms. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. مأتم حسين. يا حسين,